All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're taking a deep dive into a chapter that's, well, let's just say it's one of the strangest things I've ever read.
Really gets you thinking. Huh.
Oh, absolutely. It's from this longer fictional piece, and I gotta say, it throws you right into the deep end with this whole, like, surreal, shifting reality theme.
Yeah, it definitely plays with your expectations.
And just wait till you hear how Ben Affleck gets mixed into all of this. His name, it's like mashed up with different cultures and figures. You won't believe it.
It's like the author took everything we think we know about storytelling and just threw it out the window.
Exactly. So we're dropped into this world, right? And we meet this character, just Ben. But his last name, hang on to your hats, folks, because it's something else. Ben al-Afrikanek, Ibn al-Takbir, Ben al-Mubarak. And it keeps changing like every other paragraph.
It really makes you wonder about identity, right? Like, who is this guy? Is he anyone at all?
That's a great point, especially in today's world where everyone's so focused on crafting their online persona. And then there's this other character, Bear, impeccably dressed, almost too perfect, you know. He just casually mentions he's connected to the CIA and this Black Oyster cult.
Now, that cult thing, that's interesting. Why misspell it? Is it just a typo, or is the author hinting at something deeper? Maybe this group is deliberately playing with our expectations, messing with the very language we use.
It definitely makes you wonder what they're up to and what they want with Ben. He seems drawn to them, but why?
It's like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. There's the scene where Ben's frantically writing, trying to make sense of everything, while Bear's playing music in the background.
Oh yeah, what was with that music? Creedence, Clearwater Revival, then Huey Lewis and the News. Talk about a strange mix. It was like oil and water.
Maybe that's the point. Ben's trying to connect the dots, as Bear keeps telling him to do, but the dots themselves are so bizarre, so out of place. It's like he's trying to solve a riddle with only half the pieces.
I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling, you know? Trying to understand something, but the more you learn, the more confusing it gets. And then, to make things even weirder, Ben gets this book titled De Vermis Mysterious. Latin always creeps me out.
Yeah, there's something about Latin titles that always suggests ancient knowledge, forbidden texts, that kind of thing. It's like a signal that Ben's about to step into a world beyond the ordinary, a world with potentially dangerous secrets.
And just when you think it can't get any weirder, bam, out of nowhere, this outburst.
Hmm.
AYYLMAO. It's like the author suddenly decided to throw a pie in the reader's face.
Well, it's definitely jarring, but it's also kind of hilarious. I mean, what's the deal with that? Is it just a random joke, or is it something more?
It could be both, right? A way to break the tension, but also maybe a reflection of Ben's mental state. Like, how else do you react when reality itself starts to crumble around you?
Exactly. It's like his mind's trying to find some way to cope with the sheer weirdness of it all. And then, just when you think things can't get any stranger, Ben finds himself inside this thing called the Hypersphere.
Imagine a grid, right? A grid of countless lives, all playing out at the same time. Ben's stuck, he can't move, but he can shift his perspective, take in all this information. It's like being plugged into the Matrix.
It's such a powerful image. It could be a metaphor for so many things.
Mhm.
Information overload, the feeling of being trapped in a digital world,
Hmm.
maybe even the vastness of the universe itself.
Yeah, it's like experiencing everything and nothing all at once. But the weirdness doesn't stop there. We have a random apology from someone called Lobottleman, this corporate message that just pops up out of nowhere, and these weird text snippets that seem to come from another dimension.
It's like the author's playing with the structure of storytelling, reminding us that reality itself is often fragmented, interrupted, chaotic.
Exactly. Like, hey, pay attention. This isn't your typical bedtime story. And you know what? That's just the beginning of this wild ride.
And then there's that ending. Ben standing in front of the ninth door and
And then, bam, that
yeah.
AYLMAO again. Like, the author just decided to hit the reset button on everything.
So strange, right? I mean, is it funny? Is it unsettling? I don't even know anymore.
It's both, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, haha. But also, what the heck is going on?
I think it goes back to that idea of Den's mental state, like maybe this is his way of dealing with a reality that's just completely gone off the rails.
Makes you wonder if we'd all start shouting random internet memes if we were in his shoes.
Yeah.
But okay, before that, there's that whole hypersphere thing. What did you make of that?
Oh, the hypersphere. That's where things get really trippy, right? Infinite grid of screens, each one showing a different life, and Ben's stuck there, unable to move.
Yeah, like a digital prison, but also he could shift his perspective, see everything at once. It's overwhelming, but also kind of mesmerizing, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's like the author's trying to capture that feeling of information overload that we all experience in the digital age, endlessly scrolling, bombarded with images, never really connecting with anything.
You just described my daily routine. Seriously, though, it makes you think about how we interact with the world and how technology shapes our perception of reality.
And then, just like that, it's over. The chapter ends. We're left with this cliffhanger. Something tugged at, and then nothing. What do you think happens next?
I have no idea. But that's kind of the point, right? The author isn't giving us easy answers. Instead, they're forcing us to ask questions, to fill in the blanks with our own imaginations.
It's like a puzzle that's missing a few pieces, and we're left to figure out what the final image is supposed to be. But it's not just about the ending, right? There's so many other strange elements in this chapter that we need to unpack. Like, what about that whole lobotoman thing? That apology came out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, the bottleman. Talk about a bizarre interlude. It's like a stream of consciousness rant full of weird imagery and non sequiturs. It felt like a whole different story crammed into the middle of this one.
It's like the author saying, hey, you thought things were weird before. Hold my beer. And then, to make things even more surreal, we get that corporate message right in the middle of this crazy ramble.
Yeah, for some meditation program, it's like they're saying, even in the midst of all this chaos, there's still time to buy stuff. It's hilarious, but also kind of disturbing.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we can't escape the influence of consumerism no matter how far down the rabbit hole we go. And then, bam, out of left field, we get Worship NASCAR.
By Wes, from a Papa John's in Texas, no less.
It's so random, but it adds to that feeling of disorientation, like we're in a world where anything can happen and logic has completely gone out the window.
And then there's that weird audio recording that pops up, the one with the guy talking about hallucinations and a tangential dungeon of the Hypersphere.
That audio snippet is so creepy, right? We're getting a glimpse into another layer of reality, a layer that's even more bizarre and unsettling than the one we've already been exposed to.
It makes you wonder if there's a connection between all these seemingly random elements, like maybe there's a hidden message or a deeper meaning that we're not quite grasping yet.
It's like a puzzle box with a secret compartment, and we're still trying to figure out how to open it. And then, just when you think you're starting to get a handle on things, the author throws us another curveball with that scene with Queen Victoria.
Queen Victoria, a giant mutton leg, moths with feathers growing out of their brains. It was like a fever dream on steroids.
And Donald Trump playing a hyperfactual tune on the piano. I mean, what does that even mean? It's pure absurdity, but there's also a strange logic to it, like the author's trying to show us that reality itself is fluid and subjective.
Yeah, like maybe our perceptions of reality are more malleable than we think. And then just when your brain is about to melt from all the weirdness, the chapter ends with that story within a story. The one about Aelius Maximus and clitoral simulation.
Talk about a cliffhanger. What's the connection between those two things? Is it just shock value, or is there something deeper going on?
It's like the author's daring us to keep reading, to delve deeper into this crazy world they've created. But I have to say, even with all the absurdity, there's something about this chapter that I find strangely compelling. It's like a train wreck you can't look away from.
I know what you mean. It's so weird and confusing, but you can't help but be drawn in. It's a reminder that sometimes the most rewarding stories are the ones that challenge our expectations and make us question everything we thought we knew.
It's definitely a reading experience I won't soon forget. And that, my friends, is just the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even touched on some of the other strange elements in this chapter, like the part where...
Yeah, it's like the author just took a sledgehammer to the whole idea of a conventional narrative.
Right, and somehow it totally works. It's like, you know those abstract paintings that make you scratch your head at first, but then you start to see all these hidden meanings and connections.
Totally. It's challenging, but in a good way. It makes you think. And it stays with you long after you finish reading. It's not just entertainment, it's an experience.
Exactly. And, even with all the craziness, there's something about Ben, the main character, that I find kind of, I don't know, relatable. Like, I kind of want to know what happens to him next, even if it means going deeper into this weird, unpredictable world.
I get that. He's like this average guy who gets swept up in something much bigger than himself. You can't help but root for him, even when he's making questionable choices.
Totally. But before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to that mention of the clitoral hemisphere right at the end. It felt so out of place, but also, like, super significant.
Oh, yeah, that was a curveball for sure. I mean, what was the author trying to do there? Shock value.
Right.
Or something deeper.
Right. It could be both, couldn't it? It's like they're saying, hey, nothing is off limits in this story, even the stuff that makes people uncomfortable.
It's definitely a bold choice, and it makes you wonder what the author's overall message is. Are they trying to challenge our ideas about what's acceptable in literature? Or maybe it's a commentary on how we censor ourselves, even in our own thoughts.
Wow, yeah, that's deep. It's like, even in this super surreal world, the author's still finding ways to connect with real-life issues and anxieties.
Exactly. It's what makes this chapter so fascinating and so frustrating all at the same time. You're constantly trying to figure out what's real, what's metaphor, what it all means.
It's definitely a journey, that's for sure. And, I think that's what makes it so rewarding. It's not about getting all the answers. It's about the process of exploring, questioning, and maybe even getting a little uncomfortable along the way.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's about embracing the mystery, the ambiguity, and maybe even the absurdity of it all.
Absolutely. So, to our listeners out there, if you're looking for a story that will challenge you, make you think, and maybe even leave you scratching your head, I highly recommend checking out this chapter. It's a wild ride, but it's one you won't soon forget.
And who knows? You might even come away with some new insights into yourself and the world around you.
So that wraps up our deep dive into this, shall we say, unique chapter. We've explored shifting realities, a protagonist grappling with the unknown, and a healthy dose of the absurd.
We've talked about identity, censorship, and the power of storytelling to make us question everything we thought we knew.
If this deep dive has piqued your curiosity, we encourage you to seek out the full text and embark on your own adventure.
And remember, in the world of literature, just like in life, sometimes the most interesting discoveries happen when we venture outside our comfort zones.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an open mind. Who knows what strange and wonderful things you might find?